Hello and welcome to a new year. I cannot believe it's 2023. I'm probably going to be saying that for a while yet, but hope you had a lovely new year if you did anything, and if you didn't, hope you just had a nice relaxing evening like any other evening. We just sort of like played Monopoly on my nephew's Switch and ate far too much food, and then just saw in the new year and just stood outside our front door to look at some of the fireworks before it got too cold and too noisy, and then we all went to bed. So yeah, but I thought I would do this year a little bit differently. So usually I do my December wrap up as one video and my yearly stats as one video. I'm actually doing them into one video this year because there's just so much and so little time. So what I will do, I will put little chapters in this video so that if you want to just skip the wrap up and go straight to the stats, you can, but I'm going to start with the wrap up section and then I'll go on to my yearly stats. So here is my December 2022 wrap up. So I read a total, now I still cannot believe I did this. Yes, a lot of these were comics or graphic novels, but I read 29 books in December. Considering I was slumping hard at the beginning of the month and I brought it back and I managed to do it, I am so incredibly happy. Those 29 books was a total of 6,146 pages. And I spent 40.5 hours listening to audiobooks. I did, however, DNF 3 books. And it hurts a little bit because if I hadn't DNF'd them, I would have read 32 books. But there's reasons. So we're going to go into those ones first, get them out of the way, get the DNF negatives out of the way. So the first DNF of the month was The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, and this was a record for me. I have a unspoken rule for myself where I will give a book at least 50 pages before I DNF. 9 pages in. I didn't actually realise the major trope that is a massive part of this. It doesn't make it very clear on the blurb, and I've not seen anyone talk about it before. So I went into it all ready for this book, and then it was bad enough, the name of the love interest, bad memories. But then the trope as well was just a whole thing I didn't need. So 9 pages in, I DNF'd because Chloe at Persistent Bookworm did say that the trope features very heavily in the entire plot. So there was no point me continuing if it was going to make me feel uncomfortable. So I'm not saying it's a bad book. It might be an amazing book, but for me, this was not it. Next up is one I'm really disappointed in. I DNF'd Wolfsong by TJ Klune. I kind of matched the book today. Yeah, I DNF'd Wolfsong. I think it was 106 pages into this. Yeah, 106 pages into this. And the reason I DNF'd was because I had this inkling on who the romance was going to develop between, and it was instantly making me feel uncomfortable. So I did get Jem to spoil that aspect for me because I needed to know. And unfortunately, I was right in my prediction, and I knew I just wasn't going to be able to continue the book because even just the thought of it was making me feel uncomfortable. No shade to anyone that loves this book. Honestly, I personally was feeling uncomfortable with it. So yeah, DNF'd it, and I'm really sad because it's really pretty, but I'm not keeping this massive book on my shelves if I didn't even finish it. And then the final DNF one is, I'm really sad about this because I had such high hopes, but it is This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. Again, this is another one where no shade to this book whatsoever. I DNF'd it 44 pages in. As you might have guessed from my channel, I'm not as big a fan of fantasy anymore, and that coupled with the fact that this is slow burn and angsty, this wasn't gonna work for me. I didn't realise just how slow burn and angsty it was gonna be, but Lisa did tell me when I started saying how I wasn't enjoying it, I wasn't getting into it, and I was almost at the 50 page mark, like almost at the 50 page mark, and I just wasn't vibing with it. And that was when she told me that yeah, it is slow burn and angsty, and I was like, do you know what, I'm not going to enjoy this, so I'm not going to keep reading it and forcing myself to when I know there is a very, very high chance I am not going to enjoy it. So unfortunately, I DNF'd it. Okay, but now let's get on to the books I did finish. So I had no 2 stars, I had 1 3-star, 24 stars and 8 5-stars. So first up, we had Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare. This was a 5-star. This was a reread. I love this book. It rips my heart out, but I love it. And this was obviously the November book for By the Angel Along. I did not get to it in November, but I got to it in December, so it's fine. We had the live show. It was great. We all cried. It was amazing. Next up, we had Charm by Tracy Wolff. This was a 5-star. I loved this so much. So this is technically book 1.5. However, do not, if you're reading these books for the first time, do not read this one after Crave. You need to read them in full order of release to appreciate this, because whilst a majority of this book is set in the little period of time between books 1 and 2, which if you've read books 1 and 2, you'll know the thing. However, there is also a part of this that definitely needs to be read after book 4. So I very much class this as book 5 and not book 1.5, because I've seen a few people referring to it as book 1.5. No, naughty, stop it. Book 5. But this is amazing. It follows my favorite character because it's Hudson. I love Hudson so much. He is an amazing character, and the more we learn about his character, the more I just fall in love with him a little bit more, and just seeing his development is just everything. And I love the character dynamics. The plot of this one as well is just something I did not know I needed, but I needed it. Next up, we have The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I finally read it, friends. I've been putting this one off for so long because I was so worried that a thing I wanted to happen wasn't going to happen. I was not disappointed, and I've been very careful about what I say about this book because I don't want to spoil anything, so I've not said out loud to people what the thing is, apart from people that have read it. I've said it to them. But oh my god, this book was everything. I loved it. I did think in parts the pacing was a little bit off, but at the same time, I don't know if that was just because I was reading it very disjointedly. Like, I binged half of it and then didn't pick it up for like a week and a half. So I don't know if it was that. I feel like I might have to reread it at some point. Oh no, how terrible. But I absolutely love this, and I am not ready for the next book in this series. Like, whew. But did I say this is a 5-star? It's a 5-star. Next up, we had Written in the Stars by Alexandra Bellefleur. I buddy read this one with Ash. This is a sapphic fake dating, and it was everything I needed. Like, I need more sapphic books because, yes, and as you know, I'm loving romance right now, mostly smutty romance. And this, whew, yeah, this was amazing. And also, fake dating, as you also probably know, is one of my favourite tropes. So the fact this was sapphic, smutty, and fake dating, it ticked those boxes perfectly. I loved the characters in this. This is also kind of a very, very loose Pride and Prejudice retelling, because Darcy is very much a Mr. Darcy type character, and I was just here for it. I loved this. The character development, the relationship development between the characters was just beautiful, and I loved it. I would say this was a 5-star. However, it was a very low 5-star because I was a little bit disappointed in the ending. Not so much of what happened. I just felt like I could have been given more from that ending. It felt a little bit rushed. But overall, the ending was how I wanted it to end, and it's a romance, so, you know, I can't complain too much. Next up, we have You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. I loved this book. So this book is Friends to Lovers, which is another one of my favourite tropes. And it's also a little bit of, I wouldn't say rivals to lovers, but they have a falling out and you don't know why they're falling out. And it's like a dual timeline. So you're seeing the present day, and then you're seeing 12 summers ago on their trip, and then 11 summers, then 10 summers, then 7 summers, then 2 summers where the thing happens, where they stop talking. And it's all between these. You're getting the current timeline as well. And it's just so cleverly done. And it was so I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what has happened between these two characters? I need to know what this conflict was. And I loved them so much. Like, so much. And it was just so good. I'm actually shocked it didn't get 5-star. I put it through a core pile and I was like, wait, is that right? That doesn't feel right to me. But core pile spoke. That was my feelings when I was putting the different totals in. So, you know, core pile has spoken and it's a 4-star. Next up, we have You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. I'm actually so glad that's the note from Meg, who is the person who not only bought it for me, but has been hassling me, but in the nicest way, to read this, and I'm glad I finally listened to her. I am, however, also glad I didn't listen to her until December, because a lot of this is set around like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and there's snow, and it was just the perfect read, because it had snowed here as well, and it was just so cozy, and I just loved this. This is sort of like an enemies / rivals to lovers, but it's lovers to enemies to lovers. They are engaged and they kind of hate each other a little bit, and it's them like finding their way back to each other, and it's just so adorable, so funny, because they are just this is the only example I have where the miscommunication trope has been done well. I hate that trope, but in this it was perfect. I couldn't have imagined this book any other way, and Meg, thank you so much for pushing me to read this. I don't know if I mentioned, this was a 5-star. Next up, we have Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. Now, you know my love for Katie Robert, and I loved this book. This was a 4-star. However, I do have some issues. So Katie Robert isn't perfect. This is fine. So I loved this book, and I love all of Katie Robert's books. This is not my least favourite Katie Robert book. That still goes to The Sea Witch, which I'm still really angry about. Anyway, I love smutty books. I think this one had a bit too much smut. And in a sense, it did make sense on the plot. Once I got over the initial of the trope, I got through this fine. And don't get me wrong, the smut was great. It's just I felt like there was a little bit too much. There was plot, don't get me wrong, there was plot. But the ratio wasn't quite how I wanted it to be. It was sort of 20% plot, 80% smut. And I would have preferred it being more maybe 60% smut and 40% plot. But overall, I had a fun time. We buddy read this for Chloe Reads Books Patreon, and it was a wild ride. Ride is probably the wrong word to use when talking about this sort of smut, but it's fine. It's fine. It was fun and I enjoyed it. Next up was Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. I finally did it. Friends, I finally finished my reread of Throne of Glass, and I'm not okay. I forgot how much this book breaks me, and there was actually one thing in particular I forgot had happened until I got to it, and then I sobbed, and then I messaged Ash, who had finished rereading it a few days before, and I messaged her, I forgot about to which she had to like comfort me over the miles because I was sobbing. But I love this book. Obviously it's a 5-star. It's my favourite series, and it's everything to me. And then next up, I'm actually just going to put one picture here, because I read 14 issues of Giant Days by John Allison. I finished up the series. They all got 4 stars. This is just such a fun slice of life comic series, and it just makes me so incredibly happy. I absolutely love it. And I finished it, and then I found out we have Giant Days As Time Goes By, which is set a year after the main series ends, and it's just like a one-off issue where we get to see a year later and see where they're at since they've graduated university, and it was just so much fun and I loved it. And this also got a 4-star. And then I was fully on my, I want to hit 200 books this year. So Ash, being the amazing person she is, recommended me a series which I read the first 5 volumes of, and that is The Wicked and the Divine. Again, just going to put one picture here. I read 5 volumes. So volumes 1 and 2 got 4-star. They were amazing. I loved them. The cliffhanger at the end of volume 2 was incredible. Volume 3 has a change of art style. Now, it makes sense why there was a change of art style based on like where the plot's going, but I hated the art style so much that it brought the whole thing down to a 3-star for me. However, Ash assured me to keep going. And then volume 4 was a 5-star. The art style was back to how it was in the first 2 volumes, and it was just amazing. The plot was just getting better and better and better, and I loved it, and it was just so good, and it got a 5-star. And then volume 5 was only a 4-star, but there was a few things in the beginning that I was just like, this is dragging out a little bit, but overall I loved it. The art style again was still the same as volumes 1, 2 and 4, and I just am so excited to continue this series now because it's just so good. And I binged the first 5 volumes in like 3 days. And then the final book that I read in 2022 was Something is Killing the Children, Volume 2 by James Tynion IV. This has become one of my, no, not one of, this has become my favourite series, and I've only read 2 volumes. There are going to be 6 volumes altogether, but only 5 are currently out. The 6th one comes out this year, and I'm already obsessed. I'm hooked. Volume 1 had to be hooked, and then Volume 2 has just taken it to a whole new level. This was obviously a 5-star, and a very, very high 5-star as well. I just absolutely loved it. It's horror, which I'm not usually a fan of, but there's these like monster things, and it has Stranger Things vibes with the monsters. It's not Stranger Things. There's nothing about Stranger Things on this, but it gives me the same sort of vibes with the monsters, and I love it. It was so good, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so that was my December wrap up. I'm now going to go through my stats for the year of 2022. Okay, so 2022 was an amazing year reading wise for me. Even though I had a few months where I really slumped, I had some amazing reading experiences. I reread my favourite book ever like multiple times this year, like every other month. I'm looking at you, Love Hypothesis. And I just had the best time. I've got a lot better at DNFing books, which is great, because if you're not enjoying a book, don't force yourself. And I have got better each year at doing that. And this year I was brutal. Like last year, I DNF'd 13 books. There were some months where I didn't DNF anything, but then there were other months where I DNF'd multiple. But I was very much brutal with, if I'm not enjoying something that much, DNF. And honestly, I think that's how it should be. Obviously, not everyone is like that. Some people will want to read, which, you know, that is completely fair. Like, I used to be like that, but for me, it just doesn't work anymore. I can't do that like I used to be able to, and it sucks. It sucks because I could end up loving a book by the end of it, but I'm not going to know that, because if I force myself through it, I'm going to slump. So yeah, DNFs was a big thing this year, and I'm really glad that I've taught myself how to be able to DNF books. But I read 200 books. 200 books in the year of 2022. And of those books, I had no 1-stars. I don't do 1-stars because if I'm disliking something that much, it's a DNF. I only had 4 2-stars, which for some reason I thought I had more, but I looked at my Corpal stats and nope, 4. I had 13 3-stars. Again, thought I had more, obviously not. I had 88 4-stars, which I'm getting better at knowing my tastes, clearly. And then I had a whopping 95 5-stars. I will say a lot of those 5-stars are rereads. Well, not a lot. A fair few are rereads, because I have done a lot of rereading this year, because rereads make me happy. I know I've got all these books that I haven't read that I should read, but at the same time, rereading my favourites makes me so happy, so I am not going to like deny myself that just for the sake of reading books I haven't read before. I'm going to try and get better, but it's probably not going to happen. It's fine. But page count, I just want to share my page count for the year. Now, my Goodreads page count doesn't properly reflect, because Goodreads doesn't take into consideration any pages you've read from books you've DNF'd. It only does the books you've finished. And on my core pile, if there's a book I DNF, so for example with the Ex-Hex, I got 9 pages in. I have put my page count for that book as 9 because I still read those 9 pages. Some books I've read like 106 pages of it. I'm still counting those, but Goodreads doesn't. So my Goodreads year in total, I haven't even looked at yet because I know it's not going to be fully accurate. But on core pile, my total pages read in the year was 69,977. I have had a pretty good mix of reading physical ebooks and audiobooks as well. And I will say I have read 83 physical books, 17 audiobooks, 50 ebooks, and then there were 64 books that were mixed media. So it was either the ebook and the audiobook or the physical book and the audiobook. I did like that 64 times with like mixing up the media. So I have read a lot of physical books this year, and I've read quite a few ebooks this year, which I'm really happy with. And I do think a lot of that is thanks to my mugs. I know I haven't read every single book that I've pulled from these each month, but I've still read quite a few, and I think these have really helped me like actually reading ebooks. And also, you know, spending 2 weeks in Florida, I didn't read a huge amount, but what I did read again was ebooks. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. Like it's a good amount. I'm quite happy with that. And then I will say, in the Little Inkling planners, there are a reading wrap up of the year, and there are a few like favorites. Now, obviously, I'm doing a video with my favorites and my least favorites, but my actual all-time favorite book of the year was Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood. Yes, I know it's a novella, but I can't think of anything I loved more than this, including other Ali Hazelwoods. I loved this book so much, and it was everything. And then my favourite series is the Something is Killing the Children series. Obviously, this is volume 2. I've got volume 1 there. I haven't got the energy to pull it off the shelf. But this series is just so good already, and I'm only 2 volumes in. I am really excited to continue and hopefully complete the series this year because it is just so good. Next up, my favourite standalone of the year was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I know technically Under One Roof is a standalone. However, it is part of the Steminist novellas, and those 3 link. Therefore, that's a series. This is a full standalone, and it is my absolute favourite. I just honestly love it so much. Also, yes, I'm still bragging that I got the hardback arc of this. It is one of my most memorable moments of the year, and I'm never not going to be happy about it. I also love how here, all the way to here, is Ali Hazelwood, and that's only 2 actual books. That's just Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I do, but it's fine. My favourite author, obviously, was Ali Hazelwood this year. I've read like multiple of her books. Like I read 4 books by Ali Hazelwood for the first time this year, and then I reread Love Hypothesis in January, March, May, July, September and November. So, you know, I just yeah. Now, I will say there is an option here for your favourite book cover. I don't actually know what my favourite book cover of the year was. Because, to be honest, my brain has just been like, you read 200 books. Do you honestly expect me to remember every single one of those covers? But there's a lot of beautiful covers. Possibly Daughter of the Moon Goddess, actually. That has just come into mind. My copy is over there. I don't know. Or Circe. Circe's a beautiful cover. Anyway, maybe. We'll see. I don't have an answer for that because I've read so many books I can't think of individual covers right now. My favourite character is Liam Harding. Now, I did actually back and forth on this because whilst I love Liam Harding from Under One Roof, I also love Alex from All the Feels by Olivia Dade. So I think it might actually be between those 2. I have only written Liam on here, but I think I'm going to change that and put Liam and Alex because I love Alex and I related to him so much. Another one on here is Setting or Bookish World. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be basic and say the Crescent City world for reasons that I can't share. I don't know, that might be basic, but a lot of the books I've read this year are contemporary romance, so it's Our World, and that's definitely not my favourite setting because who wants the real world? Not me. And then there are like 3 that aren't bookish, and I know this is like a reading wrap up, but I like a reading stats and everything, but I do want to share my 3 non-bookish favourites of the year. So my favourite movie of the year is Free Guy. If you don't know what Free Guy is, it is it's a Ryan Reynolds movie. However, Ryan Reynolds wasn't the reason I watched this. I watched it for Joe Keery, who, if you don't know who Joe Keery is, he plays Steve Harrington in Stranger Things, and his character in this, Keys, is just everything. I love him so much, like so much. But the film is hilarious. There's this whole thing with Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus, which the song come on the other day and I started giggling because I could just picture the scene. But the whole film is hilarious. There are so many like little nods to different things, and honestly, I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it, but just watch it. It's so good. And then my favourite TV show, I actually have 2 for the year. So the first one is Star Wars Rebels. If you haven't watched Star Wars Rebels, what are you doing with your life? It's amazing. So good. It's one of the animated TV shows and it is set a bit later. However, it is amazing. I love it. There are 4 seasons of it and it just is everything, and I cannot wait to rewatch it because it's my favourite. And then the other TV show is no surprise. It is Stranger Things. I have many reasons why Stranger Things has become such a big part of my life, and some of them I'm not sharing because I'm just not, but this TV show has just become so ingrained in my life and it just makes me so happy. So favourite TV show. And then place I visited, of course, is Florida. As you know, went to Florida in September and it was everything. I absolutely loved it, even though the weather wasn't great, but I had the best time. And I have major FOMO because I've started editing my vlogs from Disney, and major FOMO is happening, which is why it's taking me so long to edit them. They are coming onto my channel at some point, I promise. And then the final stat I want to give you is a bookish stat again. Is genre. It's genre. Now, I'm looking at the pie chart and I'm not shocked in the slightest. So 46.3% of the books I read this year were fantasy. Now, that is a lot lower, I think, than the previous year. I'm actually going to quickly look at my 2021 to see what the percentage was for fantasy last year, because I'm really interested. Oh, so, okay, fantasy was 50% last year. 50%. There was no romance on there at all. And there was 12.3% for contemporary. That was last year. This year, fantasy has gone down to 46.3%. Romance is there and it is 20.6%. And then contemporary is 14%. Like, those contemporaries might even still have romance in, but romance isn't the main plot. Some of them are just like contemporaries. And then like the rest of the percentages is just like a mixture of like, weirdly, 1.9% was historical fiction, which is like one of my least favourite genres. I had 2.8% of horror, 5.1% of science fiction, and then everything else is just sort of like others. So yeah, it's not as much of a gap as I thought it would be, but at the same time, romance actually is there this year. Last year, it was just contemporary. And this year it's contemporary and romance. So my tastes are very much changing and I'm very much here for it. So that is my 2022 stats. Another year, and I cannot wait for this year, 2023, and to see if I can smash my reading all over again, because I am ready. It is the 1st of January and I am already looking at my TBR and I'm like, I'm going to read you today. I'm not going to tell you what book I'm starting with though. You'll find out in my vlogs. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a long one, I know, but it's because I've put 2 videos together because I'm being a bit of a cheat this year. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favourite book you read in 2022 was and how many books you read. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.